everybody. Last week or thereabouts, Jennifer McGuire had a post, and she had a guest artist named MISTI Egan, I believe was her name. And MISTI showed everyone how to make backgrounds with alcohol inks using a hairdryer. And I thought it was the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. So I immediately went onto Amazon and bought myself a little hairdryer. Now I am showing you my experimentation on what I did and what came out and what didn't come out. I did not have all of the products that they had, but I think these cards came out amazing. And I just want to let you know, from start to finish, I made 8 cards in probably an hour and a half, which, as you know, in the card making world is an absolute miracle. So let's get into it. So I started with some Yupo ink paper, 5x7 sheets, and you need Yupo or Tim Holtz alcohol ink cardstock. These are my alcohol inks. They have this cute little case, and I have I separate them by color family. These are my reds and oranges, and my metallics and yellows, and then I also have a case of blues and greens. I also tried using this gold mixative. As you can see, you need to shake it up to make sure it's mixed up, but it did not work out well. This is one product that I did not have, that when I just ordered it, when it comes in, I cannot wait to try it. I use Publix 91% brand alcohol, 91% alcohol. I bought this cute little bottle and this funnel. And if you don't have a bottle, I was thinking if you have essential oils, like a pipette might work as well. So in this particular one, I'm starting out with putting the alcohol ink on the cardstock first. And I kept this one in real time so you can see how quick it is. The other ones actually were quicker. And then I added the alcohol on top of that. And I'm trying to keep blowing the alcohol ink and the alcohol into the middle of the paper. I'm trying to keep it away from the sides, and that way that creates all that wispiness that you see. What amazed me about this was all the colors I got out of one bottle of alcohol ink. I did not add pink, and you can see the dryer. I was holding the dryer and it blew the ink, and when I picked up my scissors, they were all covered with purple alcohol ink. So now I have purple scissors, but that's okay. So I'm putting down some alcohol. I'm putting down some alcohol ink. I'm blowing it with the dryer, keeping it relatively close. As you can see, it's angled. And I probably could do a little bit better job of angling at the top. And again, this is my first one. And what I loved about what she did was that there's a lot of white background left over. I tend to fill everything up and I never leave any space. And I really enjoyed the space in these backgrounds. Now, do you see the blue that's appearing there? Again, this is the same alcohol ink. I am not adding any colors to it. I just find this absolutely fascinating and amazing. I just keep alternating. I can't decide how much I want to do, whether I should stop. I do love the way alcohol inks move. Now here I'm trying to add the gold, and it doesn't even show up. So when I get my new product, I will make a different video for you all so that you can see what it looks like with this new gold that I ordered. And silver. I ordered the silver too. I am so excited. So I'm just moving it around, moving it towards the middle, trying to decide when enough's enough. Now this is 5x7 cardstock. I also made a couple on 4.25 by 5.5 inch, and they did not come out as nicely because the cardstock wasn't big enough, and I end up having a lot of really weird edges. So I recommend 5x7 or 8 by 8.5 by 11 or 8 by 10 or whatever size it comes in bigger, and cut it down to what you want. And this is what it looks like close up. I'm almost finished with this card. Again, it would take 2.5 minutes to make one amazing background. Look how cool that is. Very shiny in real life, and it looks really cool. So I sped this one up. I've sped all of these up, but in this example, I started out with the alcohol on the paper first. And that's what I did for all the rest of these examples. And I'm putting down a little bit of red. I'm moving it around. This is my, ends up being my least favorite card or background because all of the ink went to the edges and I did not do a very good job with keeping it in the middle. I tried using alcohol pearl inks. They did not move. So I don't recommend those. And I have a red and a pink in this one. This one, again, I started with the alcohol. I'm using the blues. And I wanted to keep all of these in for you so you can see how, there's no rhyme or reason to how it happens. The key is keeping that blow dryer on the edges and focusing it towards the middle to make sure I don't blow it too close to the edge. Sorry, it's a little off screen there. I will move it up for you in just a second. And look how cool these are, guys. You got layers of color. You have all that little differentiation there. I mean, I wish you could see them because they are fascinating. And, you know, National Send a Card to a Friend Day is coming up. So that's what I had in mind when I was making these because time is kind of at the essence recently and I wanted something really quick and easy. I will show you what I did, how to finish these off really quick and easy. So I'm adding a couple of greens, looking how they blend in with each other, how they move, how wispy they get. Little blue shows through. Look how that moves around. I mean, I've done it with a straw before. This is so much funner, for lack of a better word. And now I'm going to show you my orange one. Again, I did not do a really good job of keeping it out of the edges, so now I'm trying really hard to make sure I have some white space left over because I do love the white space. And I will show you in a second how I cut them out so that I can utilize all of that different white space. And when the card disappears, it's because I'm blowing it across the table. This is going to get the hang of this. I'll probably get really good with this at one point. Look how cool that is. I mean, you know, and I didn't like that big blob of red, so now I'm trying to break it up a little bit with different colors. I'm not really sure I can. Just keep adding alcohol, hoping it'll move it around, but I'm not having much success. Just scribbling it on, a little yellow, moving it around. I'm fascinated by the way it looks, so hopefully you like it as well. And I like it when I add a couple of different colors. I think that really adds to it. And alcohol inks, I find, don't mix colors so much. Like red and yellow typically would give me orange, but in this situation, it just kept it red and yellow. So I needed to add my own little bit of orange there. And I just keep adding a little more alcohol, a little more color. I just want to keep going, and I just need to look at it and go, enough is enough, Jane. Let's be done. So this one is on silver Yupo paper and Tim Holtz paper. I'm sorry. It's Tim Holtz silver alcohol ink cardstock. I just want to see how it looked. It's not as vibrant as the white. It does move just as easily. I think I needed a little bit more alcohol in this particular one. But in real life, this one came out really, really, really cool. And I used two different pinks and a red in this one. I did a light pink, like a hot pink and a red. And all of those layers just came out absolutely amazing. I'm working on a craft mat because alcohol ink does stain everything. The one on the left is the one I just finished. The one on the right is the one I don't like as much. It's the one with the alcohol pearl inks. Kind of looks a little blobby, but it does make a really nice card. So let's turn these into cards. So I went through my stash and I dug out all of my word dies. I have quite a few. Let me just show you my big ones that I picked out. I love the Stamp Market dies. They're big and they're huge and they're awesome. This one is the Stamp Market Paper Hug. And I will have a shopping cart on my blog post. Please feel free to click on that and it'll take you to my favorite vendors, and I will make a list of all the products that I use in the blog post. So these are just a few of my large word dies, and I had a few more, and I will show you which ones I ended up using at the very end. This is a really cool one by Concord and Ninth because you kind of can see through it. And since I was making these for, you know, National Send a Card to a Friend Day, that's what I was thinking about when I was picking out my dies, as well as what's easy. So Simon Says Stamp has this grid transparency, which I use for my MISTI. It happens to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now, I don't know about you, but when I cut cardstock down, I always mess it up. So I put it on top of my background to see where I think I want to cut it. And I kind of eyeball it, put it in my Fiskars trimmer. I love this trimmer. And I always cut the long sides first because then I can use those pieces for when I do make my own backgrounds out of the scraps. And so I know this is 4 1/4, so I'm going to cut this to 4 1/4. And then the next one, I'm going to lay it on top, and I'm going to make this 5 1/2. Now, this is out of the 5 by 7 paper. When I use the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch paper, because I didn't like the edges, I cut 1/8 of an inch off of each side to make them 4 by 5 1/4. And so I had to mat those cards. But this particular one, I wanted to keep them 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I want to show you this one, show you what I did with this one. This has a lot of white on the right and not so much on the left. That's that very last one that I made. So I wanted to keep a lot of that white. So I'm laying this on top again, just to get a rough idea, putting it in my cutter, moving the transparency out of the way because I don't want to cut that. I need that. And mine's a well-loved transparency. I think it's time to get a new one. It's losing all of its detail. But you can get any piece of acrylic and cut it down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. You can take paper packaging, you know, but I use this on my MISTI, so when I'm lining up stamps, I make sure I get them straight. But in this situation, it doesn't have to be this grid transparency. It can be anything. Again, I'm trying to keep a lot of the white, and I'm trying to remove a lot of the solid because I just love the way all that white looks. So I cut every single one of my backgrounds down using the exact same process that I just showed you here. So here are my backgrounds. Off camera, I went ahead and cut a whole bunch of sentiments, 3 of each. I layered them. You know, this one has 2 whites and a silver. And everything has 3 layers so that it looks like a thick die cut. And let me show you how I just glue them together. I kind of sped this up. I do some really quick drops of glue on 2 of them at a time. And then make sure I put the lid back on my glue and put it away. And then I'm just kind of lining them up. I'm not the best at lining them up, but that's okay because it's a handmade die cut. As Jennifer always says, this is handmade, not Hallmark. So I'm just kind of lining them up the best I can. This is a whimsy happy, so it doesn't have to be exactly straight. And I just make sure it's all glued down tight. So let me show you how I do this one. I take the negative space. I made sure I cut it into a square, so I wasn't looking at a, cattywampus. It's hard to line up something that's not straight. So I laid it on top of my cardstock. I'm trying to hide a lot of that red, that solid red there. I'm using my T-square and making sure that the bottom of this is lined up pretty straight. I'm going to get some purple tape and I'm going to tape both sides of this down. I do not want it to move. I've stacked up 3 layers of each one of these little sections and I'm putting little dots of glue. And you need to work fast here because some of the glue might ooze out and then stick to your negative space. So I'm working really fast, even though this is sped up. And then you're going to go really slow and you're going to peel this back off. Again, it might have stuck a little bit, so you don't want to ruin your project. So This is in real time. I wanted to show you. I just took my time. I'm holding the letters while I'm peeling back the top, getting it out of the way a little bit, trying to work it around all those letters. I do get to a certain point where there's too much to peel. So I will get my scissors and I will cut off the excess. So less in the way to mess up, because again, I don't want my letters to come up, but I don't want this negative space to stick to my card. And my backgrounds did dry overnight before I went to this point. I don't think they need to dry overnight, but I do think they need to dry a little bit because it takes a little while for those alcohol inks to dry. Or hit them with your heat tool if you're in a rush. So I'm just peeling them up and getting rid of that negative space using I call it a pokey tool. I have no idea why I call it that. And popping that up, and then there's a little tiny piece there on the A. I'm going to get rid of that. And I noticed while I was doing it that the G needed a little bit of glue, so I did pop a little bit of glue underneath that G to make sure that it was adhered really well. I like to put something heavy on top, a block or your phone. I can't use my phone because it's my camera, but a block would work well. So these are the dies that I ended up using. The Paper Tray Ink Hugs, Stamp Market Big Hello, Stamp Market Hey, Stamp Market Paper Hug, and this is Simon Says Stamp Big Happy. These are the ones that I ended up using, and I just think they came out great. Now this is Simon Says Stamp Toner Sentiments. It comes in a sheet, and previously I took my time and I cut them all into strips. I think I mentioned to you I'm kind of in a little bit of a time crunch here. These are the Tailored Expressions at Simple Strips background. This is the most genius idea ever, and I need to get all the rest of these. It is one stamp, and those squares on the side line up with the squares on the die, and you stamp it, and then you line up the squares and you cut it, and you get all of these sentiment strips. So I had a really fun time going through my sentiment strips that I'd already done previously, figuring out which ones I want to put on my cards. So I'm just going to show you briefly how I laid everything out. I did speed it up. I knew I wanted my die cuts in a certain place, and then I used my T-ruler. I'm lining up my hello, making sure it's straight. That's on the silver cardstock. So I put my main word down on all of my cards to start with. And then I went through my sentiment strips to see which ones did I want. Again, depending on, it wasn't a birthday or anything like that. Although to me, these would make great guide cards if you did them in the darker colors, the greens and the blues, or maybe the browns. Because guide cards are so hard, and you could do hey or happy birthday or something like that. In fact, I might have to go back and make a few guide cards. I think that would be fun. So I'm just gluing all of my word dies on there, lining them up, eyeballing them for the most part. The ones that are predominantly horizontal or straight across the bottom, those I'm using my T-ruler, but the wispy ones like the happy, I'm just eyeballing that. If it's a little uneven, that's okay with me. I don't think my recipient will care. Now, I will link to these because I did not show you the name of them, but these are the Stamp Market Skinny, I believe, and I will make sure that I have that right for you. I'm not really sure if that's true or not. But I love this alphabet, and I use them in millions of cards, and there's tall and there's skinny, and you can get you can get birthday, and you can do it across the card. So I knew I was going to be cutting 6 because I wanted to put 3 for each card. So I'm kind of grouping them together. I don't really care if they're lined up. And I'm sticking them together with purple tape, so I only have to mess around with them one time. And I ran it through my Gemini Junior, which is my favorite die cutting machine, 6 times, 3 for each card. And then I, off camera, stuck them all together. And I have a pile of whole bunch of little letters for me to put together. And these are just, again, as I said, some of my most favorite letters to use. Poking that last one out. I will glue them all together 3 high, And then what I do, I line them at the bottom of my mat, as you can see, and then I put some purple tape on it, and then I pick it up with my purple tape, and that way I know it's lined up on my card front. And I'm putting a little bit of a little bit of glue on the back of all of those letters. That is totally off camera. You can see my hand in the background working on that. And there's the T-ruler, lining that up for sure. I want to make sure these are straight. And I'm going to put that down. Make sure it's straight. I don't think that's straight. I think I fixed it in the end. You'll see I did fix it in the end. And then carefully peel off your tape. You can let it sit for a little while. I did not. I just went ahead and did it just carefully. And after I got my tape off, then I put a block on it to make sure it all adhered. And I did that with 2 cards. I just love that. The bigger card, when it goes horizontal, they're farther apart. And the one that I put them on the vertical end, they're a lot closer together. You can see me at the bottom there, lining those up. I'll do this exact same thing. Put the tape on, adhere it to my card. I eyeballed this one. Take the tape off and put my clear block on top. And I just move the same block from one card to the next. But a couple of minutes that it takes, it doesn't take that long for the glue to dry. I'm pretty safe, in fact, knowing that it's pretty secure. I grabbed my score buddy and my Neenah 110-pound solar white cardstock. I cut them all 5.5 inches wide, and now I'm assembly line scoring them all. I love to do assembly line style. So I scored 8 of these, and I used my Teflon bone folder to get a really nice and crisp fold. And I did this for all 8 of my cards. I just kind of fold them and hold them and go. I'm using a stamp runner here, and I have 2 ways to show you how to put it on the card front. Line up the bottoms, line up the sides, and give it a little squeeze. Line up the bottom and the left side, because if you've got to trim a little bit, I have to trim a little bit there and a little bit off the bottom, I'm good. I always line up the fold first. Another way to do it is to, and liquid glue works great because you have a lot more wiggle room, but you do have to wait for it to dry. So in this situation, I'm laying down my card back. I'm starting in the bottom left-hand corner, lining up the fold and letting the rest fall where it falls, because I can always trim off a little bit of the cardstock. And I did that with all 8 of my cards, except for this one is the one I cut down a little smaller. And you will see when I get to another one, I'll do a mat. So I'm lying in it on that lower left-hand corner, matching the fold and letting the rest go. So this was my other one that I cut down. And I went to lay it on the white cardstock, and I thought it was a little lost. So I decided it needed a little mat. And so I swatched all of my cardstock so I can go to these swatches rather than my wall. And I store my cardstock in 2 different areas. One's on the wall and one is inside a bookcase or a shelf. And so it's easier for me to find it this way. I'm like, that's the right color. So this is Gina K Blue Lagoon. I'll go over to my wall. I'll find that. I cut that mat 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And it's just the perfect frame for underneath this for that white card. I use 3M tape to pop up my sentiments, and I'm going to show you how I kind of lay them all out and my thought process behind them. I want to make sure they weren't too long, weren't too short. I started out using my T-ruler, and then as you can see, I'm laying it out there and going, I don't really like it there. I think I prefer to have it right in the middle. I could have, I think it would have been fun to have like purple or blue or whatever cardstock with a white heat embossed sentiment. But because I was working on getting these done as quickly as possible, that's why I use these pre-made sentiments. And as you can see, I changed my mind on that love, and I moved the sentiments to the hugs. So digging through Thought that would be a good one. 3M tape on the back of all of my sentiments. Maybe it looks better on that one. I guess that's what I decided to do. Now I'm going to show you how I trim those weird edges. Look, there's two ways to trim it. I'm going to use my Tim Holtz guillotine, depending on where you come from. And my table's going to shake because my camera's on the table. But I kind of give it a little, you'll see, watch. Make sure it's lined up with that blade there. But it cuts through these 2 layers of cardstock. Amazing. Look at that. Give it a little punch, because it's too thick for me to get through all at one time. I'm going to do it again for you. And there you go. And another way to do it is just to take scissors and use your alcohol inks or backgrounds, whatever your background is on the top, and just use that as a guide and trim. And even if it's a little uneven, no one will ever know. And that is what I did for all of my cards. So let me show you everything here. That's the one I added the background. Here's the hugs. I have matching envelopes. I use Gina K and Simon Says stamp and a few ALL.THE.THINGS. I'm going to zoom these in a little bit so you can see them maybe a little bit better. I love that hugs because you can see through it. This hello is very cool with a silver cardstock, and I have a silver envelope. I did not decorate the envelopes. I have a drawer of washi tape, so I'm going to be using my washi tape. Look at the shine. Can you guys see the shine on these? Is this recording doing it any justice? They're just so fun and so vibrant and just so different. And I can't wait to experiment a little bit more and do a lot more of these. I think it'll be really, really cool. That white background really makes a difference, the white peeking through. That'd be a good guide card, wouldn't it? Anyhow, here they all are together. And thank you so very much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. And go out and get yourself some alcohol inks and give this a try. And again, all the supplies will be listed on my blog post. And I will have a shopping cart to take you to all of your favorite vendors. Thank you.